Hi, welcome back. Today is going to be episode number 2 of my Makeup and Motorsport series. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, here's a short explanation. I spend a lot of time thinking about makeup and maybe equal or more time thinking about motorsport. So, thinking about ways in which I can intersect these two interests to share my thinking about both things because why not? So today in Makeup and Motorsport, we're going to be talking about China. The makeup subject of this video is going to be Kaleidos Makeup, and the motorsport subject of this video is going to be Zhou Guanyu. So let's get started with the makeup section of this. And in this video, I will be adding timestamps because maybe you're here for the makeup, maybe you're here to learn more about motorsport. Also, part of this is just kind of me trying to find ways to share more about what I know and what I think about some of the everyday goings of F1 with newer female fans, because I know that some of you may be new to this world. I'm not as new to this world, and I have a lot of things to say with all of the things that happen all the time. Now that there's like so much information and so much drama and so many rumors and all of the things going on. But let's get started with the makeup part of this video. And hopefully by the end, 1, this will make sense, and 2, you will see the commonality in both what I'm observing happening with Kaleidos and what I'm observing happening with Zhou Guanyu. So let's start with the makeup portion of this and talk a little bit about Kaleidos. So for reference, I am wearing Kaleidos today. I am wearing the Sashimi City Futurism palette, which is Futurism 7 on my eyes today. And I am also wearing the Space Age highlighter in, which one is this? Star Surfer. Also, I am wearing in my eyes one of the multi-chrome eyeliners that they released in the Night of Creation collection. So here's the thing about Kaleidos. Kaleidos is not a super old brand. It began in the mid-2010s. Their motto is makeup on the bright side, and they are characterized by very colorful, very glowy, well, not glowy in the sense of a glowy complexion, but like shiny, beaming makeup. So lots of sparkles, lots of shine, lots of glitter, duochromes, multichromes, all the things, very, very fun, out there, colorful makeup. That has been kind of the MO of Kaleidos in the entire time they've been around, to my knowledge. I didn't know of Kaleidos' existence until I started watching Angelica Nyqvist. So a lot of my knowledge about the brand and my reviews about the brand started with Angelica. So I do want to give her credit for showcasing the brand. Then I found out that the brand was from Shanghai, China, which was my city for 3 years. I lived in Shanghai for 3 years, and I absolutely, it was definitely a life-changing experience. So once I found out that Kaleidos was from Shanghai, I was like, okay, these people are even cooler. This is awesome. So no stranger to the colorful things, the multi-chrome eyeliners when they came out. I thought that they were pretty innovative. I was like, wait, is anybody else doing this? This is awesome. And of course, the Space Age highlighters have their place in the collection. The eyeshadow palettes that they have, at least the Futurism series, which is I think the closest that they've ever done to a permanent line of eyeshadows, is a bit of a mixture of like everyday wearable neutrals with some pastels, and then some of those more flaky, shimmery metallics with some duochromes in there. So a bit of a mix where like they keep that colorful essence, but also give the everyday people some things to play around with. Like I personally think that this is a very wearable look. And I mean, all of these shades are from the same palette, but when you look at some of the shimmer shades, especially, and some of the metallics and the duochromes, is like, you know, those are out there. So one of the things that I found most interesting about Kaleidos, having lived in China and then later in South Korea for 2 years right after, is that this very colorful makeup that Kaleidos does kind of steps outside of the norm of what I experienced was the more common makeup of, you know, Chinese women and, you know, South Korean women when I was there. And you see it on the trends now when you see, for example, what K-beauty brands come out, or even other Chinese brands like Florasis, for example. It's a very different style of makeup. It's more subdued, soft washes of color, very subtle shades, a lot of, to an extent, earthy tones. If you might have one pop of color in a palette, not more than that, but definitely not what Kaleidos is doing. Kaleidos is, in my opinion, outside of the norm for like what the everyday East Asian makeup wearer does. I personally never saw people or women in China wearing makeup of the intensity and the level of fun that Kaleidos puts out there. Like never, ever, ever. But I do think that that makes them different. However, in the last couple of collections, I feel like Kaleidos may be losing the plot a little bit, and I'm really not sure why that's happening. So let's think about it. Let's think a little bit about it. So we had the Futurism series of eyeshadow palettes, which again, to my knowledge, is the closest that they've ever done to like a permanent line of eyeshadows. Mix of neutrals with some fun stuff. These are getting discontinued due to low sales. All right, fine, it happens. But you know, you had a little bit of a mix of stuff. And then you had, for a more colorful, quote unquote, permanent eyeshadow palette, you had the Escape Pod palette. I'm not really sure if that's available anymore, but if it is, then I will put a pinned comment to let you know if you can find the Escape Pod palette. They also had limited edition collabs like the Club Nebula palette that they did incidentally with Anielka Nyqvist, and a couple of other things here and there. So it's like, okay, well, you know, this, you know, it does sound like the whole makeup on the brighter side thing that they're trying to do. And then they released Smoky Nostalgia, which was a little bit of a departure from that in one aspect, which was the eyeshadows. The eyeshadows were primarily cool tone neutral. So I was like, okay, clearly they're trying to reach other people. Fine, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. Blushes, very, very, very pigmented blushes, very, very, very saturated shades, but the collection did well review-wise. Then they released Night of Creation, which is where the multi-chrome eyeliners came out. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't remember what else was released in Night of Creation. I only remember the multi-chrome eyeliners, and those are still available, and I think that they very much fit with the brand identity of that makeup on the brighter side spirit. And then Almaviva happened. And this is where I think that the consensus was like, what is going on? Which is like where I feel at the moment with Kaleidos. I'm just like in this place of like, huh? What is going on? Like, what is this? I didn't try the Almaviva collection because I had no interest in it. But again, you had those cool tone eyeshadows again, and now moving towards quads as opposed to larger palettes or like, what is it, 6-pan palettes that are the Futurism series? More than 4 is the point. They're moving towards quads. I'm like, okay, well, you know, thinking maybe about like people that are not as intense with their eyeshadow application, people that just use a few. Okay, fair enough. And then they went the complete opposite direction with the blushes and did these super desaturated blushes. I was like, okay, well, you know, they're going for the Asian market. They want to make sure that they, you know, position themselves as an option for the style of makeup that Asian women do. Sure, that makes a lot of sense. And then the reviews started coming in from a lot of women with rather pale skin tones, and they're like, we can't wear this. Like, who is this for? It doesn't show up on my skin. What's happening? I was like, huh? What is going on? Because it's like completely opposite directions when it comes to like what the collections look like, and then all this color in the middle. And it's like, I don't understand. What is happening? I have to imagine that Kaleidos may be in some sort of restructuring process where they're trying to decide in what direction they're gonna go in terms of what are we gonna do with our makeup? Are we gonna diversify a little bit and do some everyday things plus the colorful stuff? Are we going to maintain a permanent line of very colorful makeup with things, for example, like the multi-chrome eyeliners? Or are we gonna do something completely different altogether? So, you know, all of that happened, and I was like, okay, well, I don't really know what's happening. You know, a lot of reviews coming in like Kaleidos is losing the plot. We're not sure what's going on. Who was this collection for, etc., etc. And I'm like, okay, I don't understand. The Futurism series gets discontinued and it's put on sale. Then the brand is kind of quiet. As part of some of those collections, they released the lip clays. I think those came out with Smoky Nostalgia, if I remember correctly. You know, lip clays, so like liquid lipsticks. Not a lot of people doing liquid lipsticks or moussey lipsticks. a lot of bold colors in those lipsticks, which again is not something that East Asian women do in my experience living in that part of the world. You don't see a lot of like bold lipstick happening over there. It's like kind of lip tint and tinted balms and that sort of thing. Not a lot of like the more structured lip that you're used to in Western styles of makeup. But you know, the lip clays were there, whatever. I didn't really hear much about them. So I was like, okay, this brand is getting real confusing. I don't understand. And then they come out with hair care, like with hair dyes in these like super primary colors. And I'm like, okay, now I really don't understand who this is for. Huh? Hair care for who? For what? Why these colors? Like, what? Just what? So when that release came out, I felt like, okay, either they're just trying to like throw things at the wall and see what sticks, or they're like just completely lost in the plot and they're just releasing random stuff. So I don't understand what's happening with Kaleidos. I'm not really sure what's going on over there. You would have thought that like the Futurism series would have been like a sure thing to have, like a reliable permanent line for like people to find a happy medium between like the colorful things that Kaleidos do, but more wearable neutrals and pastels. But you know, they said low sales. I have to imagine that some of those low sales are still the aftermath of the pandemic, because I do know that products coming out of China did have restrictions for a little bit. And I know from some of my friends that were there during the height of the pandemic that the city of Shanghai had some pretty tough restrictions for a while. So I have to imagine that they have to be reeling from some of that. The Chinese economy hasn't been in its best moment for a couple of years at this point. So it does make me wonder, but it does make me fear for the brand a little bit. I don't know, like, where is that brand going? Which is like, it's kind of sad because I feel like they have such unique products and they are so outside of the norm for what comes out of East Asian makeup that it makes me really excited. And I mean, when you look at their social media, it seems like they're still going on that bold, colorful, out of the box direction, but like the releases of the last couple of years, they've just been confusing. And I don't understand what's happening to the brand. Like, I'm not sure that it makes sense. If you have been following Kaleidos for longer than me, please let me know in the comments how you read this situation. But I do think that it is, regardless of what happens to the brand in the future, I do think that it's really important to point out how important it is for a brand like that to exist in that society. Because like, again, in East Asian societies, like the goal is to fit in and, you know, be agreeable and conform and, you know, like not upset anybody and that sort of thing. And makeup, like what Kaleidos does, is the complete opposite. So I really hope that it was something that people could, you know, find creative outlets with, because it's not something that I ever saw while I was over there. Which leads me to Zhou Guanyu. Zhou Guanyu, if you don't know, is the very first Chinese driver to ever drive in Formula One, which is huge. You've had a lot of Japanese drivers, you've had Japanese teams, you've had Japanese team principals. There's a Japanese team principal right now, but I just knocked off my glasses. But there had never been a Chinese driver before, because China doesn't have a tradition of motorsport. Like, it's not a thing in China. It's never been historically a thing, as opposed to, for example, Japan. Japan does have a strong tradition of motorsport. We talked about it a little bit in my video doing cherry blossom inspired makeup before the Japanese Grand Prix. So very different in, you know, even this year, you look at what happened in the Chinese Grand Prix. This is like the first time ever that it sells out. And they've been racing in China since 2004. So like, it's really not something that is like part of their society, not part of their fandom. Like, it's not the NBA, let's put it that way. So growing up in China or being born in China, Zhou Guanyu definitely didn't have like anyone to look up to, but you know, seeing him race at home was really moving. It was really endearing He was very, very emotional. He was waiting for a long time because the race had been canceled for like 4 years. So he hadn't had a chance to race at home. This is his 3rd year in Formula One. So he came in like while China was still under COVID restrictions and the Chinese Grand Prix hadn't happened. Here's the thing though. I don't know where Zhou Guanyu's career is going. Nobody does. I feel like nobody does. Yes, he is a groundbreaking racer. Yes, he had a fairly decent run through the feeder series, like coming down the junior categories. He was in Formula 2 for like 3 years, if I remember correctly. Won Rookie of the Year his first year, had the support of the Renault at that time Academy, now Alpine Academy. He was, in that development program with some pretty impressive people like Oscar Piastri. So I'm not trying to say that he's not like a good driver. If you can make it to Formula One, you absolutely are a good driver, unless you have a ton of money. And that was the speculation that a lot of people had, that he was just there for the money. I don't think that's it. I think that he is good enough. I do think that the team that took him, which is Sauber, used to be Alfa Romeo, I do think that to an extent they may have had the ulterior motive of like trying to get a hold on the Chinese market because, now there's a driver. We're gonna root for the guy. And man, the Chinese did root for their guy in this race. It was awesome to see. Like, they were celebrating everything that he did, almost as if he had won the world title. It was awesome. It was really, really cool to see. But he's been in Formula One for 3 years. And I don't know that this is going anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he can score points. Yeah, he can be fast. Yes, he can pull some moves. Yes, he can make some smart calls in races, but not much else. Not much else. And so, I wouldn't go as far as saying that he doesn't deserve a seat, but I don't know that he deserves a seat over other people. And, going back to the Kaleidos example, it's the same thing. Like, I don't know that Kaleidos exactly knows where it's going. And I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. I don't know. I just don't know. And, with Zhou, again, I do want to highlight the fact that, having a dream that is so out of the ordinary in a place like China, because again, there's no tradition of motorsport, having the courage to move away, to pursue your dream, and then come back 20 years later and do the thing, that is incredibly powerful. And I hope that he is an example to other kids that look up to him and do different things. But I don't know what's going on with that kid. Like, he's not getting worse, but I don't know that he's getting better. It's just kind of there. And yes, of course, he's driving in rather uncompetitive machinery and his team is a hot mess because they cannot do a pit stop. But that's it. It's like, he's just there. And I don't really know where things are going. His team, Sauber, just hired a new driver. They brought back Nico Hülkenberg, which had been their driver before. And they're very much looking forward to turning the team over to Audi, which is going to come in as, a full-on manufacturer. They're going to make an engine. They're going to take over the team. Sauber is based in Switzerland, but Audi is going to take over and they're going to run the show and they're going to build the cars. And Audi already has a very strong tradition of motorsport, and they're clearly making moves because they're bringing in an experienced driver that they know. So where does that leave Zhou? If I had to guess, he's probably going to be the first person to lose his seat, and that's kind of sad, but I also don't know that anyone else will pick him up, and that's kind of a shame. At the same time, I don't think it's fair for any team to just pick him up for the sake of representation or for the sake of diversity, and that might be an unpopular opinion, but the reality is that there are other drivers that don't have a seat that are better than him. And there are only 20 seats on the grid, sorry. So I don't know where his career is going, which is kind of sad, but he needs to do more regardless. Yes, his team is a hot mess, and yes, his car is uncompetitive, but at the end of the day, Formula One is cutthroat, and I'm not sure that he's measuring up, it's a shame because it takes a lot of courage to do what he's done, like go out of China, money or no money, and do something different and really fight your way to, get seats, get sponsored in the feeder series, compete with other people in the feeder series that may have more support, and kind of just be like the only one, be the first one. That takes a lot of courage, but I don't know that that's enough. And it makes me wonder where his career is going. Same thing with Kaleidos. I think it takes a lot of courage to do the kind of makeup that they're doing in an environment where it might not necessarily be the most popular makeup, but I'm not sure where Kaleidos is going. It's getting kind of confusing, and I guess that we'll just have to wait and see in both cases what's going to happen with them. What do you think about any of these topics? What do you think about Zhou Guanyu's time in Formula One if you're here for the motorsport side of things? Do you think that he should keep a seat just for the sake of diversity? Do you think that he's done enough to deserve a seat to maybe get a chance at Audi to help them build that project? What about Kaleidos if you're here for the makeup side of things? Do you understand where Kaleidos is going? Because I don't. Leave me in the comments what you think about the way that I intersect these topics, and I hope to see you again on my next rambling of makeup and motorsport, which is probably going to be when one of the races that I hate the most comes to the calendar. You're gonna see me rage on the next time that we do this, because the next race is Miami and I hate it. I hate it so much. I thought I hated China. I don't. I actually don't. It's not my favorite race, but I don't hate it. I hate Miami more. So if you want to see me angry, come back for my next episode of Makeup and Motorsport, and you can see me hate on Miami like a true hater. Thank you for joining me in my insane intersections of the things that interest me. I hope you have a wonderful day, and you consider subscribing to this channel if you are interested in more of the shenanigans that we do over here. Have a wonderful day wherever you are. Bye-bye.